We wasn't black and we wasn't white. We were what Mama said that God just left us in the oven just long enough to brown us because we were the only ones that were right. She said the blacks, he left them in there too long, and the whites, that he didn't leave them in there long enough. And he left the Indians in there where they browned. And that's what we do to biscuits now. We brown them. I graduated in 1960, but I went from first grade through 12th grade at High Plains School. And it was we called it a private school because there wasn't nobody in there but Indians.
I was integrated into the white school in 1962. Yeah, 1962.
I was in the first grade. This was the last year of its operation. And in the first grade, we had first and second grade in the same classroom. It was a combination classroom. The first grade sat to one side of the classroom, the second grade to the other side. We had the same teacher, so she would be working with one group while the other group was doing independent work. And then she would switch off with us.
You know, and in the classroom, we had first, second, third, fourth grade in the same room. You know, she'd teach first a while, second, third, and then go to fourth. And it was the same way with the rest of them. We had fifth, sixth, and seventh grade, and then 8th and 9th, 10th grade, and then 11th and 12th grade.
Now we had our own High Plains school because Person County, North Carolina, nor Halifax County, Virginia, provided a school for our American Indian students. Our school began as a part of our church years ago, and the school was held at the church.
The first one was one room off of what was then the Indian Church Mayo Chapel.
And then later, when our own school was built and the Person County schools had some participation, most of the lumber and the land for the school and all that came from our community.
Everybody was excited to be in school, and of course recess was the most important thing for me. But yeah, it started out like a 4-room building, just a square building. And it had like a entranceway, like a hallway you walked into, and then there was a room on the left, there was a room on the right, and then back behind that was another room on the right and the left. And that was the original part of High Plains.
In the early 1920s, the Indian school was still one room, which held students of all different ages taught by one teacher. School at that time was held October through March, which coincides with the agricultural calendar, right? Kids were needed to go home to help with the farm. By 1924, that school had 4 rooms, and it was then called High Plains Indian School.
And then later they added on the other 2 rooms on the north side, which was one for the high school kids and one for also it had like a class for civics and all the boys was in that class. The other class that was at the far north of that building was set up for home economics, and that was for the ladies that took up cooking and sewing, all that good stuff.
And we sewed. The boys did too if they wanted to.
Virginia never did support having a school on the Virginia side, but they did furnish some of the funds for the High Plains School on the North Carolina side. And the funds may take care of helping pay the teachers, or when it was time that they needed to do some changes to the school. They may have supplied some money for supplies.
If you had extra wood, you took it to school, you know. You did whatever you could do. Now, the county furnished our books.
Both counties contributed some part to the school, such as teachers' pay, furnishings like benches, coal for the stove.
But we had paper. Our parents couldn't afford to buy writing paper. If we needed something at home to write on, we always wrote on a brown paper bag. You know, we always managed to keep a pencil.
And Person County provided minimal help along the way.
Most of the time, the school board consisted of family members, whether it be a father, a mother, or whatever, from each family.
There was one bus that picked up all the children who didn't walk from Virginia and North Carolina.
And at the very beginning, back when my dad was in elementary school, my granddad would go through and pick up some of the students and bring them to school. So it was a combined effort for our parents of the students as they went to High Plains to provide that.
I remember walking to school one day, and that's when I was very small. I was in the first grade at that time. That's the only time I remember walking to school, and that's, of course, we missed the bus. Had an older cousin. He was in the high school. He said, well, there ain't nothing to do but walk to school. Didn't have that far to walk. Didn't have about a mile, so that wasn't too bad.
Reginald, we called him, and he was an excellent student in school. So when we were taking our final exam for the 12th grade, he said, now if you listen to me, I'll tell you what the answer is. If I clear my throat twice, it's a B. If I clear my throat 3 times, it's number C. If I don't do it at all, you know it's number A. So we all passed that exam that year. Every one of us. But we laughed and told him we didn't cheat. He was just clearing his throat.
In this area, in the southeast, and in Person County and Halifax County were very different than they are now. It was the norm for parents of all school children to furnish some part of the school, whether it was building material and labor or the land.
I don't remember having an Indian teacher, but Ruby's mom and them had them, you know, when they were growing up. But now we had all white teachers. They were white, but they were good to us. And our parents was good to them.
Furnished the wood and everything for the parents did, and they supported the teachers and whatever they needed.
Well, in the wintertime, we had a wood stove. Every once in a while, they'd bring a load of coal in, for it. But mostly, the parents brought wood.
School was very important. Even though my mom and dad were farmers, and we would come home from school and have to go to work in the fields, depending on whatever phase we were in with the tobacco. When we got home, they always made sure we got our homework done, that if it was anything they needed to study, with us for on our flashcards or different things, they were always supportive.
My mama didn't go to school that much, so she didn't know how to help us with the homework.
It was always fun to be with our friends because this was our cousins, our family, our neighbors. We would all be at the school together, and we went to church together. We visited each other's homes, so we were always best buds playing together at High Plains.
If you were doing something and you needed help, you'd ask your neighbor. And they always helped. You didn't have no problem. Well, what are you going to pay me? That wasn't nothing. It wasn't anything like that.
All of us were so connected and close, and the families was related to each other, that we were just bonded with the whole group of kids at High Plains. So it's just like one big family.
We didn't have powwows, but we had gatherings. Our mothers and fathers would cook pies and cakes and all of this, and the men would wash tubs full of lemonade or Kool-Aid, you know, and we'd all gather at the school.
My mom happened to be the PTA president the year that the school was closed. So she had gone to meetings of the Board of Education and expressed a desire of not wanting to close the High Plains School. But we did have some of our American Indian parents that felt like we would get a better opportunity if we went to the white schools. My mom and dad never shared that thought.
They closed it because we didn't have the facilities to cook, and they needed a lunchroom, and that's why they closed it down.
North Carolina had passed a law that the students had to be provided a hot lunch at school, and High Plains did not have a cafeteria.
In 1954 came the case of Brown versus the Board of Education, in which the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that it was unconstitutional to have racial segregation in public schools, and that overturned the 1896 separate but equal doctrine.
So instead of using the funds to build on a cafeteria at High Plains, the county decided to close the school.
In 1962, the Board of Education decided to withdraw the high school students from High Plains Indian School and send them to the Person County School, Bethel Hill High School. The plan then extended to all the students of High Plains Indian School, and they were sent to Allensville Elementary.
It was a big culture shock to me on going to the Allensville School. All of my contact had been with the High Plains families, and we went to church together, we played together, we went to school together. So all of our contact had been with our American Indian students, those of us here in the community. It was different going to an all-white school.
When we graduated from high school, then everybody dispersed out, whether some was fortunate enough to go to college, or some of them didn't want to go to college and just went straight on to manufacturing job.
We didn't have the same identity once we started moving outside of the community.
90% of our people that graduated, they left and went other places. You know, Richmond, Pennsylvania.
And Georgia, and just places off like that, and then they never moved back. Other than when you have, like, they'd come back to visit when you have homecoming or something like that. But oftentimes I would think, I said, just think, if our people were given the opportunity to grow here where they went to school, where they grew up, then just think about how huge, how big a tribe we would have here today, you know?
Well, you know, when we were born, they didn't call us an Indian or black. We were mulattoes. And I didn't know anything about that until after I got married. And I went looking for some things that I needed, and I found out that I had to change my birth certificate. I had to change it and put Indian on it. But then when my baby sister and the sister below me were born, theirs had Indian on it. And they had mom and daddy as Indians. But on mine, it was mulatto. Now what that was, I don't know. It either said you want black and you want white.
A later census term for many southeastern Indians was mulatto, but it could mean different things. It could mean white and black, it could mean white and Indian, or it could mean Indian, but you weren't white.
People give you the cold shoulder, didn't want to have nothing to do with talking to you, shunned you. Some of the stores you go in, they looked at you differently. For example, I know you've seen Westerns on TV, right? And you've seen people be in the general store, be shopping, doing whatever. Then you see this Indian person come in. Then everybody stops talking, starts looking and whispering and all. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about.
I think the American Indian community sometimes was looked over. It wasn't, when you would think about the race of people, you thought of black or white. And the Indian didn't much so play into the identity of different things. And even though we had been settled here in this area for a long time, my dad had stories that he could tell of places even as close as Virgilina is that he wasn't welcome to be served at, or to go into the stores and different things. And when you went to the courthouse in Roxborough, we'd have to take our tobacco to Roxborough or South Boston to sell. And so at the courthouse, they had public bathrooms. They had one for the whites and one for the blacks. And the Indians didn't even have a bathroom labeled for them. So it was like we were the looked over race in a lot of situations.
If we went to a bathroom in public, you had to go to the black. If you wanted to drink water, you had to drink out of the black. You couldn't drink out of the white. And that's one reason why I never wanted to live in town.
So I remember on the first day of school, when we went outside for our morning recess, we kind of stayed in our own little corners. Our American Indian students were kind of palling up, standing around together, and the white students were kind of standing across the way from us. And finally this one little boy said, "Well, if y'all are really Indian, prove it." So my sister, who's normally very shy, didn't have much to say, kind of put us together in a huddle and said, "Now whatever I do, you all do." She got out there and was doing the little stereotypical rain dance, going around in a circle with the woo woo woo, and we were following her, the stereotypical stuff. When we were going around in a circle, probably our second time around, it came a huge clap of thunder and started pouring down rain. So it astonished us because we in no ways thought that, we could do a real rain dance. So I thought this was miraculous. So I couldn't wait to get home to tell my mom that we had made it rain, and she was not enthused at all. She said we should feel proud to be who we are, and we don't have to prove that to anybody else, that we should be proud of our identity, and it doesn't matter the situation, on who the people were that were in our surroundings. We should always have that pride. That has really stood with me on wherever my leadership positions have been, or different places I've been in positions with people from other cultures, that I should always be proud of who I am as an American Indian.